The UFC has produced some of the best female fights in MMA history. But what happens when the stakes are just a little bit higher? When the ultimate prize is on the line? This is Guts Glory MMA's top 10 women's title fights in the UFC, where we count down our top 10 title fights in the UFC's women's divisions. Please subscribe to the channel for content made by fans, for the fans. Hit the bell to be notified when our videos go live. Number 10. Carla Esparza vs. Rose Namajunas. Fighting at the Ultimate Fighter 20 finale to crown the inaugural strawweight champion, Rose vs. Carla was the end result of a long and competitive tournament which saw Rose defeat Joanna Calderwood and Randa Marcos, while Esparza defeated Tecia Torres and Jessica Penne to meet Rose in the final. It was Esparza's veteran savvy and grappling experience that would see her submit Rose with a rear naked choke to be the first ever 115-pound champion. Number 9. Ronda Rousey vs. Liz Carmouche. Once the UFC had purchased Strikeforce and its bevy of female talent, the writing was on the wall that fast-rising star Ronda Rousey would defend the company's 135-pound title she brought with her in a main event. She found a willing competitor in Carmouche who stood opposite Rousey in her dominant grappling game. The event was UFC 157 and Rousey performed as expected. She out-grappled Carmouche before sinking in an armbar at the end of the first to be the first ever winner of a women's title match in the UFC. Number 8. Holm vs. Misha Tate. The stage was set for UFC 196. As new champion, fresh off her massive upset of Ronda Rousey, Holm would defend her title against one of the most recognized females in the division in Misha Tate. After a grueling 4 rounds that saw Holm ahead on the scorecards, Tate pulled a rear naked choke in the 5th round to capture the belt. Number 7. Valentina Shevchenko vs. Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Being widely known as one of the best fighters in the women's divisions, Joanna would move up to 125 pounds after 2 straight losses to Rose Namajunas left her wondering what was next. Enter Valentina Shevchenko. Fresh off losses of her own to 135-pound queen Amanda Nunes, the fight was set for UFC 231. It was a competitive back-and-forth affair that saw Valentina secure the victory and the vacant 125-pound belt. This would be the start of her legacy as the queen of the division. Number 6. Rose Namajunas vs. Joanna Jedrzejczyk. After a dominant 14-0 run with 5 title defenses, Joanna would head into her first fight with Rose Namajunas and get caught for a TKO loss. That would set up the inevitable rematch at UFC 223. We would find out that the first win was not just a fluke or a sign of the future. Rose would take the rematch by a score of 49-46 on all 3 scorecards and prove to any doubters that she was indeed the champion. Number 5. Ronda Rousey vs. Misha Tate 2. Being arguably the 2 biggest stars of the division, and having already fought once under the Strikeforce banner, you couldn't have written a better matchup. The rematch would take place at UFC 168. The fight would last longer this time, but the result would be the same, with Rousey winning by 3rd round armbar and closing the door on this feud permanently. Number 4. Amanda Nunes vs. Cris Cyborg. Both women had effectively cleaned out entire divisions and were known as the most dominant females in the sport. Brutal finishes by both women lined highlight reels and set up for the most anticipated fight in 145-pound history. The fight for the entire 51 seconds it lasted was a firefight that saw both women land, but would see Nunes land last and the hardest. She would knock out Cyborg to seal the win and her status as the double champ and the best female fighter on the planet. Number 3. Ronda Rousey vs. Holm. In the highest profile women's MMA fight to date, Holm faced defending champion Ronda Rousey before a record-setting crowd in the main event of UFC 193. Holm controlled the bout with her striking and defended all of Rousey's takedowns effectively, being just the second fighter to take Rousey past the first round. Holm ultimately won the fight via knockout in the second round with a high kick, ending Rousey's undefeated streak and 3-year reign as champion. Number 2. Amanda Nunes vs. Valentina Shevchenko 2. The first time these two met, Nunes won by decision at UFC 196. The second time they met, the title was on the line and they did not disappoint. It was a back-and-forth affair that saw Nunes win and retain after a highly contested split decision, in which 10 media outlets gave the decision win to Shevchenko and 2 outlets called it a draw. Number 1. Zhang Weili vs. Joanna Jedrzejczyk. Fresh off a win over Jessica Andrade to win the belt, Zhang Weili would defend the title against Joanna, who was returning to strawweight after a stint at flyweight saw her unsuccessful in capturing the belt. After an exciting back-and-forth contest that saw some amazing striking and both women digging deeper than ever before, Weili would get the decision. The fight would be the last before the COVID-19 pandemic hit and would also garner attention as one of the best women's MMA fights of all time, as well as one of the best title fights of all time. Thank you for watching our top 10 women's championship matches in UFC. Next week we will be back with another top 10 video. Please like and subscribe.